Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing a book review video. So let's just get right into it. So this book I got at Book Bingo at my local library. They have it twice a month, and this is called The Charm Bracelet. It's by Viola Shipman, and this is what it looks like. Now I will say, this book almost made me cry in a couple of spots. It's about the three generations of women, the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter, where the mother and the daughter, they're having problems in their little family household, where the daughter knows that her mom and her dad are divorced, and her dad doesn't really want to help take care of her, doesn't really want to help pay for her college, that kind of stuff. And her mom is struggling because she's a single mom. She works, I think, as like she kind of works like at a place that does stories about celebrities, and she helps the writers write the articles. I guess that's what she does. Anyway, she works in this company, and basically the story goes is her mother, the girl's mother, gets a call from the mother's mother, the grandmother's place of employment. She works in they live in this small little town, and she works at a fudge shop, and she gets the call about, hey, she's not really herself, she's been late to work, that kind of thing. And here it turns out, she comes back, it's Memorial Day weekend, and she's only supposed to stay for the weekend, or the week, I guess, like for a vacation. And she takes her daughter with her, and their tie-in is that the grandmother's mother, when the grandmother was little, her mother would give her a charm for her charm bracelet, and these charms represented different things, and they went back and forth throughout the book, like from the past and the present, about how she got these charms. And then her mother died, and then she still continued on the tradition. Her dad did it, and then when she got older, she did the same thing with her daughter, and then her daughter, the grandmother, did the same thing for her granddaughter, gave her charms, that kind of thing. And here it turns out something is going on with the grandmother, and the daughter, Arden, I think that's the daughter's name, she doesn't know what to do. She's in this spot where she's like, I have all this stuff going on, I don't need something else on my plate, I'm too busy, that kind of thing. And her daughter, I forget what her daughter's name is. Lauren. I think that's her daughter's name, Lauren. They're trying to come to terms with it. They're trying to help the grandmother out, that kind of stuff. And like I said, it made me cry. It almost made me cry. This book, like, just the stuff in it, like the sadness of it, that kind of thing. It did have like a happy-ish ending to it that I remember. But it was a good book. Like, that was probably like a 5-star read, kind of. So this book, I started reading this book, and honestly, I really didn't want to finish it. This is called The Gondola Scam. It's the 6th mystery, starring Lovejoy, the antiques dealer, and it's by Jonathan Gash. This is what it looks like. I have a couple of these books. It's about this man named Lovejoy, and he's supposed to go to Italy, I think in Venice, where he's on the job for this older man, and it has something to do about, there's this place that is replicating antiques. They're making fakes, and they're giving them to these antique dealers to sell in auctions. And that's what he's basically there for. But the thing I didn't get in the whole book is when he's talking about women and I think he calls them either fish or birds, something like that. I don't remember. And I'm thinking to myself, why in the world are you calling these women this? You know, it was just a weird thing. And the guy, the main character, he is British, so I don't know, maybe that's why. But it was just an okay book. I feel like these were kind of like, this guy was kind of like, when he wrote these, it was kind of like, the Agatha Christie kind of era, that kind of thing, where he wrote these books. But I don't know, I didn't really enjoy it. Like I said, I really wanted to not finish it, because I was just like, I just didn't like it. I didn't like the book. I don't know. I wasn't vibing with that book. So this book is called The Tudor Throne. It's by Brandy Purdy. This is what it looks like. It's a historical fiction kind of book. It takes place around Henry VIII, and it's basically when Henry VIII dies. And it's about Edward, Mary, and Elizabeth and their storylines. And it's just a really weird book. In the beginning, it's a little bit repetitive, because Mary and Elizabeth are going back in time to when they were children. And they were talking about, oh, this is what it was like when their mothers died. And this is what it was like when the next wife came into the picture, and so on and so forth, and all that stuff. And then it gets into what happened after Henry VIII died. It talks about Lady Jane Grey and how she was supposed to rule England after Edward died, and what happened with that. It goes about with how Mary doesn't like her sister anymore. She blames her sister for everything that's going on while she's in her reign as queen, that kind of stuff. And then it picks up with with Elizabeth and her starting to be queen. I don't think it goes up to when she died. I don't remember. But yeah, and there was just some little things in the book that I really thought, did you have, like, with Elizabeth and these men, like her stepmother, Catherine Parr, at the end, I think, yeah, it was Catherine Parr, I think. She married this man, Thomas something, and Elizabeth lives with her, and her, Catherine's husband is hitting on her, romancing her, that kind of stuff, and it's just weird, because I'm like, she's supposed to be the Virgin Queen. Now, I know that's probably, like, the fictional part of the book. And then it talks about these other men that would, like, lay their feelings out for her, and she's like, no. Like, after that happened with Catherine Parr's husband, she's like, no, never again am I getting into that kind of stuff. And that's when she decided, you know, she wasn't going to marry, she wasn't going to have kids, she wasn't going to get involved in all that stuff. And then Mary's story of, you know, when she's pregnant and how it's really not a pregnancy, that kind of thing, and how she really wants to be pregnant, but she knows she's old, and she blames Elizabeth for that, for how, and apparently too, like, Mary's husband, Prince Philip, he apparently wants to be with Elizabeth too in the book. And there was a part in the book where Catherine Parr's husband, like, takes off all of Elizabeth's clothes in the gardens as they're walking for some reason, and she has to go back into the castle or wherever they're living, and she runs into all these people, you know, all, like, the staff and everything, servants, I guess. There was just certain points in the book that were, like, cringeworthy, and you were kind of like, you didn't have to describe it like that, because I wouldn't think, there's a part in the book where I'm kind of like, it was cringy. And I was like, you didn't have to put that in the book, to be honest. Like, I don't think that's how this woman, I think it was Mary, felt like. It was either Mary or Elizabeth, I can't remember. Like, you didn't have to go into, not explicit detail, but it was almost explicit, that kind of thing. So this book is self-explanatory. I read this book because, you know, it was July, and, you know, Christmas in July, all that hype. And it's called Treasured Stories of Christmas. It's from the editors of Guidepost. This is what it looks like. And basically, it's just a whole book filled with mini stories. There's some poems in it about Christmas time. And it's mostly like religious kind of stories. Like, it's about faith more than anything else. So if you don't like stories like that, this book's not for you. I liked it. Some of the stories were really touching in a way. Or there was this one story about, I think it was about this church, and this man comes, and he was a carpenter, and here it was Joseph, and then when the things got done in this church, he just disappeared. Nobody seen him, nobody knew who he was, that kind of thing. That was the one story I remember. There was a story about little kids and how, you know, they didn't have a lot. You know, these little kids didn't have a lot of money or whatever, and they made do with what they had. They were grateful for what they had, that kind of stuff. And I liked this book. I mean, it was a short book. It, like, you could read this probably in like a day and a half. I think that's how long it took me to read. So the last book, this book, oh no, there's two more books. This book I wanted to read for so long, but I had to find it because it wasn't with the other book in the series. Now this book is like a duology. There's a second book to this, and I'll read it the next time I get back over to where I read like my books in certain places for each book review video. So it might not be until like late fall by the time I get back to where this book was. And it's called It Happened One Summer. And it's by Tessa Bailey. And I know if you've seen my book review videos, I diss Tessa Bailey all the time in it. But this was one of her earlier books. And I got this book right after I seen Cara Emily. She did makeup, and now she's more of like a booktuber. She read it and she praised this book. She praised this author. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna read it. And I did find it. I had to get it at Target. This is what it looks like if I didn't show you. And it's about this woman. She comes from the rich side of LA. Her name was Piper. And she gets into trouble. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter, you know, my stepdad can bail me out, that kind of thing. Her sister comes to bail her out instead. And when they get back home, her stepfather says, hey, this isn't working out anymore. You know, what you did was horrible. It almost made me lose one of my jobs. He does stuff on movie sets. I don't forget what exactly he does, but I know he does stuff on movie sets. And so he basically says, you're going to the small town, I think in Washington, and you're going to fix up, you're going to go fix up / work in your real father's bar. And they go into kind of like a backstory of what happened to her dad, her real dad, that kind of thing. And when she gets there, you know, she stands out. Her sister comes with her, and she stands out because obviously she's in like these fancy designer outfits, and everybody in this small town is just wearing like jeans and a t-shirt, you know, that they bought like at the local store, you know. And here she meets up with this sea captain man who reminds her of her dad because, you know, her dad was a fisherman, that kind of thing. And her mother said, you know, don't get involved with these fishermen because that's all they care about is the sea. You will always be number 2 to them, never number 1. And they get off on a hate relationship. They don't really like each other. And then eventually they start to like each other a lot more. They start out as friends, and then they get to be more than friends. But the one thing that I love about this book is in most of the books that I read by Tessa Bailey, as soon as they meet each other, it doesn't matter where they are, where they're at. It seems like as soon as they meet each other, every time after that, they start to shack up, and the smut happens. And in this book, it didn't happen like that. I think it took more than halfway through the book for the smut to actually happen, and it actually had a plot. Because usually once she adds the smut into her books, there's no real plot, to be honest. At least I feel like that. And this book actually had a good plot to it. I actually liked this book, and like I said, it might be just because this was her, like, one of her earlier works. That might have been why. But I liked it. I liked both of these characters. I liked her sister's character. I forget what her sister's name was. I don't think it was Holly. I don't remember. I don't remember what her sister's name was. It might have been Holly. I don't remember. But the second book is probably going to be about her sister's relationship. I don't really know. But I really liked it. So I hope the second book in this set, is Zoology, is better than like the most of her books that she wrote. So this is the last book I have. Last but not least. This is called Do Geese Get Goosebumps? I got this book at Five Below. I like books like this. It's basically a question and answer book. Like, it has questions in here that you might not ever think about. Like, do geese get goosebumps? What's really in a hot dog? You know, why do dogs' tails wag? Why do we dream? Why do we die? Why do we only use 10% of our brain? That kind of thing. And they're separated into categories. And this book took me, I think, like 2 days to read. And this is by the Bathroom Readers Institute. I mean, it was from Five Below, so I have no clue if that's really who wrote the book or not. I don't know. And it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. There were some interesting things in this book that even I didn't know or realize. Like about sweat. There was some stuff about sweat in the book that it made you cringe a little bit, because you're like, oh, this is what it means when your sweat smells. That kind of thing. So that was my book review video for this month. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.